The original series was created and pushed through by a Jew by the name of Sydney Newman. And he was the son, he was born in Toronto, and he was the son of a Russian Jewish immigrant father who ran a shoe shop. He was born in 1917. And so he was a Canadian film and television producer who played a pioneering role in British television drama from the late 50s to the late 60s. After returning to Canada in 1970, Newman was appointed acting director of the Broadcast Programs Branch for the Canadian Radio and Television Commission, and then the National Film Board of Canada. He also occupied senior positions at the Canadian Film Development Corporation and the Canadian Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and acted as an advisor to the Secretary of State. This was no mere screenwriter with a script to pitch. During his time in Britain in the 1950s and the 1960s, he worked first with the Associate British Corporation, ABC, now Thames Television, before moving across to the BBC in 1962, holding the role of the head of drama with both organizations. During this phase of his career, he was responsible for initiating two hugely popular television programs: the spy-fi series, The Avengers, and the science fiction series, Doctor Who, as well as overseeing the production of groundbreaking social realist drama series such as Armchair Theater and The Wednesday Play. During the Second World War, the head of the NFB, John Grierson, promoted Newman to film producer, working on documentaries and propaganda films, including Fighting Norway, which he directed. In 1944, he was made executive producer of Canada Carries On, which was basically a war propaganda motivation series that the Jews were doing to motivate the Gentile to keep fighting their war for them. So this was the producer of the Canada Carries On series, a long-running series of such films. In 1949, Gregson again assisted Newman's career, entering him into television, then a new industry, on a one-year attachment to NBC in New York City. His assignment there was to compile reports for the Canadian government on American television techniques, focusing on dramas, documentaries, and outside broadcasts. So, here you have a Jew that is trained in psychological warfare that goes to the BBC, and his two biggest projects are basically a pre-Bond type Operation Gladio series that glamorized these post-OSS. During the World War II, you had before the CIA, you had this OSS group that was working with groups like MI6 in the UK and the French underground, which was all Jews, and the Soviet Jews against the Germans. And then after the war, of course, you had the Star Chamber justice system of Operation Gladio, where you had these Jewish Mossad hit squads, death squads, working with the CIA, etc., that were taking out people that were in the way of their agenda. That was basically, when you look at the Avengers, and I loved the Avengers. I always thought it was great because that was what I was supposed to think. But basically, this was training films for the Junior Mossad that were now have Israel and are in Europe and the North Americas to protect Israel interests, but they're the hip, cool spies that are very mod and very with it, right? The progressive type assassins. So he did the Avengers and then the series Doctor Who. Now, what's interesting there with Doctor Who is gets into that Jewish sense of both the Superman and the alien. Remember that about 1886, a few years before H.G. Wells' Time Machine, Frederick Nietzsche was busy churning out his Beyond Good and Evil type books, his Thus Spoke Zarathustra, those type of books of the Superman. So you're getting this idea of the Superman entering in. And also you're getting these stories of alienation, the Jew as the alien in the culture that's superior but still alienated by everyone around him. And the 1933, jumping forward, is when you first see the Superman character, the Jewish kids doing Superman, who is an alien from a destroyed world. He can't go home, and he's there living amongst the Goyim under a secret identity, and he does good works outside the law system. Superman never got a warrant, never brought in law enforcement. He just did what had to be done against the bad guys. And so it was that idea of the Superman that started entering in the new graphic comic book genre, as well as the new radio programs, radio operas, and the new television shows. So in 1963, Doctor Who premieres on the BBC. And it's amazing to me to see just how Jewish it looks, because the doctor and his granddaughter are in the TARDIS. Two teachers from the local school where the girl is attending classes, they follow her into this junkyard where this phone box is standing. They think they see her go inside, and they see this man who has the kippah on. He's got his meanie beanie type on. It's a little bit more like a hat, but you get the symbolism there. He has his prayer shawl on. Looks very, very conservative, like we. The only thing missing really is the dreadlocks on the side, but you see that he's a very Jewish-looking man in the pilot episode. And these two Goyim teachers are trying to find a missing female student, a missing teenage girl, and they thought they saw her go into this strange box, and they think that they might be holding her there. The girl then speaks, they rush the door, and they see the inside of the TARDIS for the first time, and the inside's bigger than the outside. That's the big thing about the whole franchise, is you have a device that can manipulate time and space, and so the inside is bigger than the outside. This, of course, blows away the two science teachers from the local school where the girl is enrolled, because she enjoys studying humans. And it's this point where Doctor Who says he is an alien. He is not of this world, and how far advanced he is and his daughter are beyond them. And so this is the very first part of this. So you get this idea of the alien supremacists. And so we find that the Doctor comes from a planet called Gallifrey. That was where the Time Lords were. So this is a lordly class of people. And in the first episode, they need to cement their bad guys. And so they go with the TARDIS to another planet that we find out is Skaro, and you see a race of two types of beings. You have the Daleks and the Thals, and the storyline is that during a neutron bomb war, the species that was there mutated and split into the Daleks and the Thals. The Thals were humanoids, but the Daleks were these transhuman type creatures. They were more of robotic type shells with a life form inside all that barricade. So basically the life form had barricaded itself into this robotic structure, and that became the principal bad guy in the Doctor Who universe. The Daleks, which were the master race, they saw every other species as their slaves, and so they were treating the Thals as their slaves on this planet. And of course, this is right out of H.G. Wells' Morlocks and Eloys. Just you have Daleks and Thals. When you look at where Sydney Newman was going with his characters of the Daleks, this is what they say on Wikipedia. The Daleks are a fictional extraterrestrial race of mutants principally portrayed in the British science fiction television program Doctor Who. The Daleks were conceived by science fiction writer Terry Nation and first appeared in the 1963 Doctor Who serial The Daleks in the shells designed by Raymond Cusick. Drawing inspirations from the real-life example of the Nazis, the Daleks are merciless and pitiless cyborg aliens demanding total conformity, bent on conquest of the universe and the extermination of what they see as inferior races. Their catchphrase, "exterminate," is a well-recognized reference in British pop culture. So here we have that Jewish projection of call the Daleks not Zionists, not Jewish supremacists, which is very Talmudic and accurate, but instead that image that they're crafting of the evil Nazi. And so evil Nazis that killed 6 Gorillions, well, that's like the Daleks, and they're the same thing. So you have to hate the Daleks. Here is also the seed that will run throughout the entire franchise, is at no point in time does this master race of Time Lords, no matter which regeneration cycle he's on, ever go back to see that before the war started, that Judea declares war on Germany. That little data dot escapes all these Time Lords that are so superior. But the point I'm trying to make is throughout this series, it is really plays on the emotionalism of the British Armed Services, especially World War II. So every Doctor Who has to do an evil Nazi episode, and where it's just the stereotypical evil Nazis, and Doctor Who and his multicultural gang of companions go in and save the day. And so this is where this is coming from, is this Sydney Newman, guy who did propaganda in World War II, is creating this very derivative universe for BBC television. And it's, like I said, it was not a series that was great and was then corrupted. It was pretty much corrupted from day one. But we fell for it because we thought it was well written, it was well produced, it was entertaining, it was thought-provoking, all those other things that you're supposed to think. Meanwhile, they're getting you into an emotional, excited state so that they can do cultural Marxism programming on you. And this is the part that we start seeing happening. Now, in the original Doctor Who, you see that the characters become more and more what we call hip progressive. They're dressing like the models in the magazines, the movie stars. And so in 65, they released Doctor Who and the Daleks as a film and get actor Peter Cushing to play the Doctor. And here they changed the storyline to appeal more to the British audience, where instead of being an alien from Gallifrey, the inference is that it's Peter Cushing is just playing an brilliant British scientist inventor that has invented the TARDIS, and it's on their test run flight that they go to the planet Skaro and meet the Daleks and the Thals. So they're carrying this from the TV series to the movie to establish this is the Doctor Who universe. You have the TARDIS, and you have Daleks, and you have the Thals. And the thing that changed, though, for the two movies was that Peter Cushing's character was not an alien from Gallifrey. And they always point this out at any type of Doctor Who trivia, that all the points made in the two Peter Cushing movies are apocryphal to the official Doctor Who universe storyline. So I thought that was interesting. At the same time, you were seeing shows like The Time Tunnel on U.S. television, also shows like The Dark Shadows and The Outer Limits and Twilight Zone. So here, when you look at all of those shows, you see so much of this cultural programming they're trying to put in there, especially with the breaking down of the existing system for the false reality shown on that magic box and putting us in a circle and ellipse paradigm of what Pavlov described as induced neuroses. So you're showing these two very, very different worlds and programming to get people to leave behind the family system to go running after what's on the magic box of television. Doctor Who kind of ran its course. It became basically cult following, if you will, in the late 70s, more of a cottage industry of sci-fi fans. Really, you hadn't seen the takeoff of the big blockbuster sci-fi movies yet, like Star Wars and Star Trek and those type of things. So it kind of had its success, and then it faded out and was eventually canceled in 1989. After 1989, that's when we start seeing a lot of geopolitical shakeups all over the world, especially in the UK, the European Union, with George Soros's 1992 attack to force the EU into the European Union. Here in the States, we were seeing the big, I was talking about last week, the big coup with Walmart, the Clinton administration coming into power, and just a lot of things changed in 1992. I always call it the Jew coup of 92. And so that was the backdrop of the need to bring back the franchise. And so here you had, post 9/11, the war on terrors everywhere. You've got the UK and the European Union. Things aren't going well. And they've got the Kalergi plan in full swing with all these war refugees that, just like in the United States post-1965, they have just been flooding the UK and Europe with all these non-white people as a way to do white genocide. That's part of their agenda. And so they had to start being able to sell this multicultural UK, this new Britain, this multicultural Britain, where the only thing you can't find in London is an Englishman. In 1996, they did a Doctor Who, the movie, made for TV, and it was basically reintroducing the Doctor with his arch nemesis, the Master. And the Master is another one of the main characters. He is also a surviving Time Lord, but one of the game rules of Time Lords is you only get 12 regenerations. And so a Time Lord, once they live out a life and they die, they regenerate into a new body. They have the memories and experience of the old, but now they are a completely new entity, and they can only do this 12 times. After that, it's considered an abomination, or they're supposed to die for real. Well, the Master is one of those Time Lords that refuse to stop after 12 regeneration, and so he's in a degenerate state. So the 96 movie, the Doctor Who, the movie, reintroduces the Master to the storyline. Then in 99, Comic Relief, who does the Red Nose Days, and again, this is one of those non-profits that raises money for good causes, but when you look at it, it's really shady what they're doing. But in 99, they did a spoof of the Doctor Who called The Curse of the Fatal Death to raise money for the Red Nose charity. But that was very successful, getting Doctor Who back out into the public arena. Then in 2003, they did an animation series, and this was called The Scream of the Shalka. and to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Doctor Who. And what it introduces is one of the main companions. Instead of being a nice British girl, now we see a black girl in dreadlocks and beads as the Doctor's companion. And so this is part of that new multicultural England that the Jews were pushing. In 1998, a little-known 15-year-old girl who had gotten her start on a children's program called Scratchy & Co., that BBC system, the child's program, Scratchy & Co., produced a girl by the name of Billie Piper. And at 15, she signed a recording tract and released a debut single, Because We Want To. And she was brought in to turn the young British girls into young black girls. So they should start dressing and acting like black girls instead of white British girls. And especially with the rap and hip-hop type genre musics that were being flooded in the UK just like they were in the United States. And so she did a lot of these very successful songs that were basically showing all the white girls around but all the black guys. And so it was that idea of race mixing is cool, don't you want to be like Billie Piper? That is who was chosen to be the new companion on the reboot of Doctor Who. The 9th Doctor on the reboot was Christopher Eccleston. Basically what happened is in 2003, a guy named Russell T. Davies, Russell T. Davies, who is an OBE, by the way, is a Welsh screenwriter whose works include Queer as Folk, Bob and Rose, The Second Coming, Casanova, the 2005 revival of the classic science fiction series Doctor Who, and the trilogy Cucumber, Tofu, and Banana. In case you don't know, he is also a flaming homosexual, is huge into gay rights, LGBT promotion, and his whole series on the trilogy of Cucumber, Tofu, and Banana, that is slang terms for the various states of a male penis. And so that gives you the idea of where this person's mindset is. But he is one of the most awarded people in the BBC in this whole story. So Russell T. Davies, who was supposedly a huge Doctor Who fan, finally got it green-lighted to do what they called the reboot of Doctor Who. And they started filming in 2004 and aired the show on March 26, 2005 in an episode called Rose, which showed Billie Piper as the character, long-surviving character, Rose Tyler, who was the Doctor's companion, but of course had a black boyfriend. So this was the other aspect of this dynamic, is you see that all the companions from this point on always are race mixing. So all the pretty white British girls that you're supposed to fall in love with and get emotionally attached to every episode, they all are choosing non-white, non-British guys as boyfriends. And so that's one of the themes you see. Also, Doctor Who is always the alpha above any human. That he's a Time Lord, so therefore he's superior. So you see also this cucking effect of all the males around this Doctor Who character. And it's usually, if you want to live, you have to do what I say because I'm the brilliant person who's going to understand this and get you out of this. So other people who contributed to this are Stephen William Moffat, who is an OBE, and he did such sitcoms like Joking Apart, did a drama series called The Press Gang, had a sitcom called The Coupling, and a lot of this was just about the new abnormal normal, the homosexual mixed everything goes society where you've got just a hodgepodge of sexualities. You've got bisexuals, you've got homosexuals, you've got predators, you've got cougars, all of this, which is a very Jewish model. Remember the 6 genders of Judaism that, Judaism, the Talmud recognizes, these 6 genders. And so basically these writers are taking that as a template and working this in to all of these new Doctor Who episodes. And the other person that was very pivotal to this is Julie Gardner, who was an MBE, who's a Welsh television producer. Her most prominent works has been serving as executive producer on the 2005 revival of Doctor Who, its spin-off shows Torchwood and the Sarah Jane Adventures, and she now works for BBC Worldwide. Again, all of her work is about this LGBT, multi-culturalism, people of color, and white genocide. They don't call it white genocide, but that's what they're pushing. And so those 3, Russell T. Davies, Stephen Moffat, and Julie Gardner, were really the push behind this, what they called the Doctor Who reboot. And episode 1 of series 1, the episode called Rose, had 10.81 million viewers. 4 days after it premiered, the Doctor Who franchise were renewed for a Christmas special and a second season, and it won the BAFTA award, which is sort of like an Academy Award. It's another one of those Jews giving Jews award, and there's Shabbat Goy giving them awards to basically say what you're doing is worthwhile. It's a manipulation tactic to give awards. You promote the ones that are pushing your agenda, and you penalize the ones that aren't. In 2005, on Christmas Day, they released a Doctor Who episode called The Christmas Invasion. And this introduced David Tennant as the 10th Doctor in the episode that introduced the meme, "Every Christmas is Last Christmas." And from 2005, every year, Doctor Who has done a Christmas special. And if you ever watch them, they are the most depressing episodes ever. And it always centers around a loved one dying. And so this mind manipulation on Christmas Day is that every Christmas is the last Christmas you'll spend with that person because they're going to die this year. And next Christmas, they won't be here anymore. And so it's an interesting sentiment, yes, but a repeated sentiment that gets into psychological warfare. And then we realize that these are all Jewish writers that are introducing this. And degenerate, they hate everything about Christianity. And it reminds me of the Jews with their, is it good for Israel type chants, where every Yom Kippur or every Jewish holiday they always say next year in Jerusalem, that next year we're going to have the temple. And so it's the same thing with and Christianity's got to die, so we're going to kill Christianity, so every Christmas is last Christmas. And you see that they always find a way to make a mockery out of Christmas. They always show Santa Clauses. It's always Santa Clauses, but there's never any nativity scenes or anything to do with the Gospels or anything like that, or the nativity story. It's always Christmas in England with Santa Clauses and very British crackers and things, and there's always a threat that's going to destroy the world, but Doctor Who saves the day and saves Christmas, and every Christmas is last Christmas. I made the mistake with a friend one time where we were going to watch all the Doctor Who Christmas specials on Christmas, right? And made it through 2 before it was like, oh, this is the worst idea ever. I forgot how miserably depressing these are. And so you just realize that, that's for a reason. And so it's just that, again, demoralizing of the population. And it's interesting that around this time period is when documentary maker Adam Curtis, who did the Century of the Self series, was releasing a documentary on the oh dear effect of learned helplessness, that all these things are going on and you can't do anything about it. And so when you see these Doctor Who episodes like Christmas specials, it just really magnifies that this idea of helpless against something bigger than you. And if it weren't for these people behind the scenes, the hidden hand, you would not be celebrating Christmas. And so there's always this alien doctor who is superior to you but comes in and saves the world because you're his favorite pets, basically. And this is what's really coming out in this last season. Just this supremacist attitude as this franchise continues to drag on. And that's one of the things about these series and they write about this demoralization, is to build up something, to get a fan base, and then to tear it down so that you disillusion the followers with these things. And that's part of the Psyop, is to build something up, to tear it down. In the past seasons, it reminds me so much of other franchises like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, and these other series that just, once they got their audience base and they used up any semblance of a good storyline, they were just, milking the franchise for what they could to keep it renewed, and just getting darker and darker and darker the whole time, pushing through this agenda rather than looking to see what the viewers were wanting. And so your viewership dies off, but they've destroyed the franchise. And in 2010, in the episode The End of Time, they introduced the 11th Doctor, which was Matt Smith. And here you see the transition between the Doctor as the professor type to the Doctor as the young hero lover interest. And so you have all this sexual tension of these three young doctors with David Tennant and Matt Smith and Christopher Eccleston. And then in the 50th anniversary on 2013, November 23rd, the Day of the Doctor, they introduced Peter Capaldi as the new Doctor, who is an older, grayed, battle-worn Doctor, and then describing the dynamics of the relationships there with the companions. And then he was in the first full episode with the 2013 Christmas special, The Time of the Doctor. And they're supposed to continue the series throughout 2017, and then supposedly he's going to end it. They don't know if they'll be able to keep the story going because they're technically breaking the Time Lord rule, which may be part of where they're going with this new season, which has introduced the new companion, who's not a beautiful young British girl anymore, but now it is a black homosexual girl who we're told is this brilliant French fry cooker savant. She basically works in the cafeteria but goes to Doctor Who's lectures at the local university, and she understands all about this high physics, etc. But again, she is now a homosexual lesbian that's chasing women throughout the whole series. And she goes by Bill. And so they're introducing that. And the new beta cuck male is a guy named Nardole, played by Matt Lucas, who is just this almost like a caricature of a man, the asexual male. And so that's what they're pushing in this latest series. Again, each season I see the quality of the writing going down and getting darker and darker. And it's going to be interesting to see this season if they're going to continue working with the Doctor turning into a darker Time Lord like the Master. And they have reintroduced the Master now as not the Master, but Missy. And basically putting the Master regenerated as a Victorian-styled woman who is now sexually attracted to the Doctor. And so they've got this dynamic going of well, that guy used to be, that master used to be a guy, now he's a girl, and he's got romantic interest in the doctor, and that's fine because his companion is a black lesbian, so this all works out. And that's kind of the world of Doctor Who as given to us by Russell T. Davies, Stephen Moffat, and Julie Gardner. And again, it's just that propaganda disguised as entertainment. Every time they do something, it's always going to have a skew in it. There's always that hidden virus file contained in anything that's put out by the television systems. And it's just maddening, I guess, to have to put up with it. But and the other thing is that the British people have to pay a license fee to have a television set. So they're paying the BBC to be able to have this come into their home. So anyway, so that's basically the world of Doctor Who. I know that's probably more fanboy than a lot of you were interested in, but I was just trying to show that just like the Star Trek and the Star Wars, yeah, there's always going to be that globalist Jewish themes or contamination running through it. It's always a Trojan horse in all of these projects, no matter what they call it. And they're always going to try to tear it down. And I guess one of the other aspects of the Doctor Who is, as they keep going back in history, they keep showing Europe as being more and more multicultural. Like this episode this past Saturday had Roman legion troops that were completely integrated with, black homosexual soldiers fighting right beside the guys from Rome proper. And just things like that you're seeing more and more of, that they're trying to, it's like doing a Google search on European people now. Somebody sent me that, I think it was Golden Pipe Wrench, but you look at Google and look up European people, and you're just going to see a screen full of black people. That, white people never existed in Europe. Would a Morlock lie to you? Would a Dalek lie to you? So with that said, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out to the Trading Post this evening for the Breakfast Club, and I hope everyone has a wonderful week. And until next time, I will see you all at the rendezvous. Thank you.